are not born. It's really strange when you talk to 1,000+ participants. It's different than when you are in front of you. But hopefully you are enjoying this session and you are with us throughout. The IPC point, the infection control talks about there is a designated multidisciplinary committee that provides oversight of the infection prevention and control program. For the most hospitals, I think this is not a challenge. We just want to make sure that you have an infection prevention and control committee chaired by the hospital director or the medical director. No one else. These two, and the reason is because we want to empower that committee. We want to empower that committee by these posts. Now, if the IPC committee is reporting to a corporate IPC committee, it is still necessary that the chairman has to be medical director or hospital director at the hospital level to discuss all the issues related to infection control. Here you look at the members. Membership, you can go through the membership of the Infection Control Committee. It has to be multidisciplinary, cover all concerned staff, such as medical nursing, microbiology, OR, CSSD, and so forth. You can read this on your own. So we will look at the term of reference to make sure that these numbers are there, and we will look at the minutes to make sure that you are discussing the critical issues, such as breaks. And if the members are missing, you will be given score based on the percentage of those available. IPC 4.3, and this talks about the committee meets on a regular basis, the infection at least quarterly, and we will look at the meeting. Are you meeting quarterly at least, and are you discussing issues? We don't want to be sitting and chatting about our lives. We want to make sure that we talk about infection control issues. And the IPC 4.4 talks about the function of that committee. It must include, but not limited to, 1 through 6. As you can see in this slide, you can also refer to your hospital portal to look at this details, and we will look in your reference and in your minute to make sure that this is done. IPC 15 talks about the design of the rooms, and here we are looking for facility design and available supply support isolation practices. 15.1 talks about having negative pressure rooms. Negative pressure rooms, at least you should have one in emergency department and one for every 25 to 30 beds in the rest of the wards. Okay? However, in certain hospitals, such as mental health, rehab, ICE hospitals, one negative pressure room in ER is required, and one outside ER for the whole hospital, regardless of the size. However, you must have an agreement, clear written agreement, for a comprehensive transfer plan for a referral of infectious cases. So because you don't have enough negative pressure rooms in those hospitals, then you have to have an agreement how you're gonna refer them. Having adequate number of negative pressure room, isolation rooms for inpatient with no room in ER will partially meet this substandard. Now, IPC 15.3 talks about the engineering records for these rooms, such as the monitoring the negative pressure, monitoring the air change per hour, and monitoring the humidity and the temperature of these rooms according to the manufacturer recommendation and your hospital policy. So you want to make sure that your staff, whether infection control staff or engineering or other staff involved in these rooms, they should be aware of these activities and they are recording them accordingly. And we look at the HEPA filter and other standards and engineering control records to make sure that they are available as documents in the document evidence. Now we need to stretch a little bit, and you need to stretch. So talking about IPC 15.5, toilet, shower, or tub and hand washing facilities are provided for each isolation room, except in ICU. ICU, these are not mandatory. However, in ER and any other area with negative pressure room, they should have toilet, shower, or tub and hand washing facilities available in these rooms. IPC 15.6 talks about the transmission-based precaution cards. They should be color-coded, and you can choose whatever color you want to use, but make sure they are color-coded. They have signs, figures that people know, and they are written both in English and Arabic, and it should contain a statement about patient transfer, what to do with them when you transfer such patients, what precautions to use for these transmission-based cards. Also for 15.7, you want to make sure that respirator high filtration masks such as N95 are used by staff. So we ask about, we observe if they are available, we observe the donning and the removing of N95, we ask staff about the fit testing and their knowledge about the use of N95 and fit testing for these areas. 15.8 talks about the reuse of the N95 mask by the same patient caregiver as per the period specified by the manufacturer. So if your policy states that your N95 or high filtration masks are single use and staff, then you will be scored. However, if you mention that we reuse these masks, you need to mention two things. You need to clearly specify what is the manufacturer recommendation. Don't put in the policy as per the recommendation of the manufacturer. You have to spell it up for the staff and understand what are the instructions for reusing. Also, you should mention in your policy that if any other precaution added on top of the airborne isolation, such as MERS-CoV, chickenpox, then N95 mask reuse is prohibited. So you cannot mention the reuse for this, even if you are allowed to reuse these masks. Now going to medication management, and hopefully we will not go to take more time for the clinical portion. This talks about high alert medications. What you need to do is you have to have a policy signed by, that is multidisciplinary, signed by the pharmacy director, nursing director, medical director, to a minimum. You have to have that policy done. The policy should be thorough, talks about the identification, location, labeling, storage, prevention, error prevention strategies, and so forth. It has to be comprehensive, covering from the time you get these medications to storage, to dispensing, to prescribing, to administration, and so forth. You should have a list based on your formulary, based on your scope of practice, scope of service. You should have a list that contains at least 1 through 9, as you see in the slide, and do not put them in categories, because this will negatively impact the score. Put exactly the names and the percentage, if applicable, such as in concentrated electrolytes, the list. And the list has to be updated annually and approved by the PMT committee, otherwise it would partially meet the standard. The list must be from within the hospital formulary. Don't go beyond your formulary because it's not needed. Covers to a minimum at least the list mentioned here, and the list should include, as I mentioned, specific drug names, not categories. 5.3 talks about the plan for managing high alert. We all know that high alert medications can be detrimental to patients if given in error. So you have to have a plan, prevention strategies to prevent errors from these resulting from these medications, because these are high risk medications. So you want to make sure that you have access to information about these medications. People can go and read about them. Also, you want to limiting access to higher medications. You don't have to lock them. You want to make sure their access is limited. Nobody can access them easily. Using auxiliary labels for computerized alerts if available. And you want to make sure that you standardize, the ordering is standardized. transcribing, preparation, dispensing, all stages of medication use process. And also you want to make sure that you employ independent double check. You mention it in the policy, you make sure that the staff are aware of this, and they implement it, they practice it. So we have the observation and we have the staff interview where we observe and ask staff to make sure that this is implemented. And when we talk about independent double check, we talk about when we dispense and we administer these medications, we independently double check. MM 5.4, the hospital develops and implements standard concentration. So we interview staff such as nurses, physicians, and pharmacists to make sure that they are implementing standard concentration for high alert medications administered by IV, and also we look for document evidence to make sure that these standards are available in the units and they are implemented. This one cannot be scored, by the way, in any hospital setting. MM6 talks about lookalike, sound-alike medications, and here we want to make sure, again, just like the high alert, we want to make sure that there is a policy signed by the pharmacy.
طفاء تسجل هي
ها؟ It has to be approved by the PNT committee, and this is not this MM6.2 talks about the hospital reviews and revises annually list of confusing drug names, which include NASA medications, name pairs, and so forth. And that list has to be annual, has to be approved by the PNT committee, it has to be from within the hospital formulary, because there is no point adding a medication that is outside the formulary because it could create confusion. It contains both lookalike and sound-alike medications in separate tables or lists. So you want to make sure that the list has lookalike and sound-alike separate, because we want to know which one is lookalike, which one is sound-alike, and some of them they might be lookalike and sound-alike, because each one has different strategy to plan. And it has to be updated annually. 6.3, the hospital should take action, and we check for the actions through observation, staff interview, and document evidence to make sure that these strategies 1 through 7 or 1 through 8 are used, such as using generic and plan, minimizing the verbal and telephone order, and changing the appearance of lookalike medications. And also we look for education material and attendance sheet for those who attended the education about lookalike, sound-alike medications. Now moving to medication error, MM41 talks about that you should have a mechanism and a process for reporting medication errors, including significant errors, near misses, and hazardous situations and at-risk behaviors. So, as we mentioned in the previous policies for the high alert and NASA, it has to be signed at least by the pharmacy, nursing, and medical, and it should the policy should reference to the reporting form, notification of the provider about the error, feedback to the reporters, time frames used for reporting and notification, and documenting medical records, and who should document, and where in the medical records. So these should be available in the policy, and in order to be fully compliant. So the policy should have definition for the significant, near misses, and hazard situations. Having a medication error definition only is not enough. You have to have the significant medication error, near misses, and hazardous situation. And also the treating physician should be notified about the error at the appropriate time. And you should mention this in your policy, that because we will interview physician, the treating, attending, or most responsible physician, and how they get to know or informed about any medication error. Medication error reporting is complete within a specific within 48 hours. I don't make sure that you have it in the policy, and make sure that your staff is aware about the time. Also, the hospital has a standard format. You should have a standard format. Standard format can be electronic or document for them to report any error. Staff, they should be educated about the importance of reporting, and we will ask the staff about this. There is active reporting. I know this is a challenge. This is a challenge for hospitals and challenge for surveyors. However, what we look for is we need to see active involvement by physicians, nurses, pharmacists in reporting, and you have enough reported incidents or medication errors that match your bed size or admission. 41.8 conducts that the hospital conducts intensive root cause analysis for significant or potentially significant medication errors. That's why we mentioned that you should have that in the policy, the definition for significant error, so you will identify them and you conduct root cause analysis for these, so you can meet these standards fully. 41.9 talks about that they are documented in the medical record, and here only medications that reach the patients. Medications that reach the patients, they should be documented in the patient record. And if you insert a copy of the reporting form in the file, it's not acceptable. This is a medical legal issue that you should not use, but you should document somewhere in the progress notes or interdisciplinary form, wherever your hospital see appropriate. 41.10, you should utilize these reported incidents because we are utilizing the staff are spending time reporting these, so you should utilize these data to improve, and you should have a proof that you are utilizing this data to improve medication error prevention. The PNP or subcommittee reporting to PNP, Pharmacy and Committee, is acceptable to do the analysis and corrective actions. 11 talks about the healthcare professionals are provided with feedback and reported errors. Yes, you have to have, and you ask staff to make sure that they receive feedback about reported errors. 41.1 of the hospital reports certain event related to serious medication errors to relevant authorities. So those hospitals who are accredited by Cbahi, they should report sentinel events to Cbahi whenever they occur. The activity here is document evidence. So if you don't have any sentinel event happened or reported during the survey or during the past 12 months or 4 months based on your status, then this will be scored an A. However, the PNT committee activity cannot be scored an A because we will ask staff, the members of the PNT committee, to make sure they are aware of the reporting process of sentinel events. Last one in terms of the clinical is the LB, and we talk about LB.51. The blood bank develops a process to prevent disease transmission by blood or platelet transfusion. Here, if you look at the intent, you will see so much information, but I want to highlight that if the hospital does not have donation services and used to receive blood from another facility, central blood bank, a written agreement should be available to ensure that such tests are done by that facility, and the agreement should be signed by both parties, and it includes conditions, agreement conditions, specify the role of involved party in looking back to monitor how they release blood products, and include infectious disease testing, dates with valid, and also the process for resolving any disputes. These are the requirements for the contract. And these are the tests that should be done for the blood. So we look for the policy to make sure that you have that policy and it mentions all these tests, and it's not. This is for hospitals who don't have donation services and they test. And if you outsource the testing or blood, you should have an agreement, as we mentioned earlier. Also, we'll do the observation. We look at the TTDT, the test process to confirm compliance. And if a hospital does not have donation service, then, as I mentioned, a written agreement, as mentioned in the intent, with its details. And we ask staff to make sure that they are aware of this and they are competent with these tests. Also, we look at the document evidence, review randomly selected records to confirm that the lab is compliant with the policy. And as I mentioned, if the hospital does not have donation service, then we should have a written agreement that meets the criteria mentioned in the intent. LB 51.2, the blood bank has a process to limit and detect bacterial contamination. So there are two components here. The blood bank has a approach to limit the bacterial contamination and to ensure the detection method is sensitive enough to detect significant bacterial contamination. So we review the lab policies and procedures on limiting detecting bacterial contamination, and also we observe the practice to confirm implementation of strategies to limit bacteria, such as cleaning the manufacturing area and circular motion from in and out without going back, and also the pouch, the divergent pouch, to make sure that this is done. Also, we ask staff to make sure that they are aware and they're competent about the bacterial contamination prevention. Now, of course, if you don't have the donation area and you receive it from outside, these would be scored as not applicable, or if you don't, or if it's outside your scope. Now we will move the microphone to our engineer Jamal to make sure. Now he will go through the facility management ESR standards, and please welcome with me Mr. Engineer Jamal.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Okay, thank you for attending. I know that you are all busy and you're taking the time to attend with us today. So I really appreciate that, and I hope, and we all hope that you would benefit from this presentation. Just to make sure that you can hear me okay. Everybody is hearing me okay, no problems. That sounds great. Okay, so we'll talk about the ESRs, the FMS standards. And as you are already aware, that there are 6 FMS ESR standards and a total of 38 substandards. Of course, 4 of them are for life and safety, 1 for the hazardous material, radiation, and utilities. There is 1 ESR, so a total of 6 ESRs. The first ones are the hazardous material, which is the radiation FMS 9. The hospital ensures that all its occupants are safe from radiation hazards. So the intent for this standard is simply just to make sure that staff and patients are not exposed to any radiation that are FMS 9.1. The hospital has a radiation safety policy and procedure, and it is implemented. Having the policy without implementation is useless. So this activity is a document review. It's very important to have a policy that is complete, that has needed elements, and these are some of the elements that are or should be in the policy. Testing the aprons, thyroid, and blood shields. That's annual testing and how you do the testing. Monitoring the TLD badges. That's quarterly for staff, and we'll see later on more details. Annual testing for calibration, annual testing and calibration for radiology equipment. Procedures for pregnant radiology staff. Permissible exposure limits for organs of the body, and the radiation emergencies in case you have radioactive materials, so what to do in case of the spill. And of course, if you have radioactive materials, your policy should include details about radioactive materials, how to save, handle, and how to store. So these are some of the elements that are needed in the policy. Sometimes you see policies that are very short, and it does not cover these elements as a minimum, so it will not be scored fully based. Depends on how much details you have. The score would be In addition to this, not having only a policy, you need to have policy and procedure, as it's mentioned. So you need to have details. For example, the testing credit papers, that how frequently you need to do it. It's required to do once a year, using fluoroscopy, for example, or X-ray, and you need to use it, for example, you do monthly visual inspection. So you need to have more details on how to test it. FMS 9.2, that's if you have radioactive materials, that means you need to make sure that all radioactive materials are clearly labeled and safely for security. So if you have, we will see details. If you don't have radioactive materials, then this standard will be not applicable. So this is an example. You can just see here all radioactive materials, regardless of what they are. You can just see here different types, iodine 151 or the cesium 157, and so on. So it has to be a label for every radioactive material source that we found. And what's wrong with this picture? You probably can see there is no label for any of these radioactive materials, and that is not that. So it has to be labeled. FMS 9.3. The hospital has relevant valid license from King Abdulaziz City or Takir, King Abdullah City for atomic and renewable energy. So that's only if you have radioactive materials, you need to have that license. Otherwise, it's this substandard would be not applicable. Even though there are licenses that you need to get from King Abdullah City or King Abdullah City for your equipment, but this standard FMS 9.3 is intended only for radioactive. And this is an example of a license. I will give you the list. You can just see all the list for the radioactive materials that are typed. The next substandard is FMS 9.4. Staff handling nuclear materials are qualified and certified by King Abdullah or University. So this activity is a staff interview. So just very much just to make sure that the staff are aware and they have the proper training. So at least we need to have one RSO, radiation safety officer, who is certified. If there are other people helping him, they need to have training done by the RSO. So they don't have to be all certified, but at least somebody who's in the hospital at all time has to be one certified. So that's again only if you have radioactive materials. The next substandard, FMS 9.4, staff handling materials are qualified, and this is again the second activity, which is the personnel file. So basically, the surveyor will just look at the personnel file of the radiation safety officer, just to make sure that he has received the license from King Abdullah City or King Abdulaziz City, and to make sure that it is still valid. And it has to be renewed every 2 or every 3 years. FMS 9.5, there is a valid shielding certificate of X-ray rules, including regular tests to ensure that permissible radiation level. So again, this activity is a staff interview, just to make sure that the radiation safety officer knows the process, how the test is done. It was before allowed for the RSO to conduct this training or to conduct this leak test, but now based on the CACIR, it must be done by a certified company. That's which is the next activity. So FMS 9.5, document evidence. There's valid shielding certificate for X-ray room. So it's the same substandard but a different activity. The documented evidence that they need to see the shielding certificate. As I mentioned, it has to be done by a certified company. Before it was mandatory to do this once a year. Now, according to CACIR, you can do this just before you renew your license for your room. For example, if you have your CT or you have the conventional X-ray or the fluoroscope, you have to renew the license for that every 3 years. And before you renew the license, they will mandate that you do shielding certificate for this, or you do the leak test to give you this. That has to be done by a certified party. Of course, there are many companies who are certified. Ministry of Health, the area, they have the authority to do this testing. And other private hospitals, they need to get a certified company. And they give them a certificate or survey report like this, showing where the machine is, the different areas where they need to test, and they will do the average reading, the test, and they will have remarks there whether it's passed or failed. And this is, again, that's a license for the company just to use, and you can just see again, you need to make sure that it is still valid, and that's another license. Or you can always log in to the CACAIR website and see which certified companies have the approval or they have license to do this. FMS 9.6, lead aprons and gunner thyroid shields are available to cover patients and staff that needs, and they are annually tested. So the observation, the activity here is observation. The surveyor will look in different areas just to make sure there are enough lead aprons to cover patient and staff, enough thyroid shield. If you have pediatric, then you need to have thyroid shield for pediatrics and for adults. And the lead aprons, they'll check the conditions, how they are stored, and they will check for the next activity, which we'll talk about in a minute, the documented evidence. So this is an observation, and you can see an example that this lead apron is just very much thrown over the CR or the portable X-ray, which is going to cause crack over time. So that's the correct way for storage and having different thyroid shields and different gunner. The second activity is documented evidence. Just they need to make sure that all lead aprons or thyroid shield or gunner are labeled. Make sure that it is the test. For example, here you can see this is, for example, it's OR1. So that's located in OR, and this is number 1. It could be number 2 or 3 base of the area. And in your sheet, you'll have the documentation there, the number 1, number 2, number 3, and the testing that was done. Whether you use the fluoroscopy or the X-ray, it's fine. And you can do the monthly visual inspection. FMS 9.7, personal radiation dosimeters. This is for the TLD cards or TLD badges. So every employee needs to have the TLD badges. Whenever they're working in the radiology department, they need to have their TLD badge on. It should be visible. They should be wearing that. This is with the observation. So the staff will make sure, or the surveyor will make sure when they go to this area, that all staff are wearing their TLD badges. And this should be done again for every 3 months. If you have pregnant staff, it's better to have her away from this job, but if she's the only one and you have no other option, but she has to work, then you need to give her 2 TLD badges, one for herself and one for the fetus, and they should be worn at different levels, one shoulder level and one towards the pelvic. In addition, the other difference, if you have a pregnant staff, you need to do the analysis every month. So for regular staff, analysis are conducted quarterly, 15 months, but for pregnant staff, the analysis must be done monthly. And that's a question always come out, should you wear the TLD badge under the apron or above the apron? It's really recommended to wear it below under the apron, because that's where it is measuring the exposure. You are but it's okay to wear it on top above the apron, but you have to do, there is a formula you need to utilize, depending on the thickness of the lead apron, and calculate how much the body's exposure and how much you get exposed. So it is much easier to wear it under the lead apron and save yourself the hassle. FMS 9.7, personal radiation dosimeters cards are available. Again, so this is the documented evidence that the surveyor will look at the sheets, and it looks like this, and that has the readings for all the staff. They usually look back for 4 quarters just to make sure that the readings are okay within the exposure limit, which is usually 20 millisieverts per year. Or if you go by quarter, that means it should not exceed 5 millisieverts per quarter. But the action level should be much less. So once that's your policy, so you get some hospitals start policy when somebody reaches 1.5 or 1.5 millisievert, you start investigation trying to find out why it happened. But the reading should be very minimal, very slow. As you can see here, it's in microns. Next, so that's it for the first standard, which is about radiation. The next standard is about FMS with 1. The hospital has an effective fire alarm system. The intent of this standard very much is just to save the staff, personnel lives, and to save the assets and property of the hospital. And there are some elements that need to be done when you do PM or when you do the inspection. For example, you just mentioned the intent. You have the date that was done, the frequency for that PM or the test, the name and address of the hospital. For example, here in Riyadh, the central region, there are some hospitals that has maybe they have multiple hospitals in one region. So you need to know that this is for the hospital in location, this street address for that location. So it's very important to have more details so you know that this is for this hospital. Also, it's very important to have the name of the person who's doing the test and the check that we have different groups. We'll see this in more details. So the first substandard, FMS 21.1, there is a fire alarm system that is functioning and regularly inspected as per civil defense guidelines. So it's very important to have here talk about inspection. So we need to have two things. You need to have a schedule for the inspections if you do it monthly, and you need to have report. So the schedule should have the different areas. If your hospital is small, you probably can inspect the whole hospital in 1 month, in 1 day each month. But if you have a medical city or a large hospital, there is no way you can finish that 500 in 1 month. So you can break it down different. For example, building number 1, the ground floor can be done in 1 day, then the next month you'll do a second floor and so on. So, but you can plan it to have your hospital, all your smoke detectors inspected throughout. The inspection should have, again, you have the list of survey zones, for example, the device zone. For example, if you have 3 or 4 different zones for your hospital, so when you inspect this month, I inspect zone number 1, and how many smoke detectors you have inspected, and of course, cover the elements that were done. Also, the inspection date,